like about 10 New York against 250 dudes, man, at the club, man. They all just try to jump us though, man. But you know what I mean? Like, we came out victorious on that move, and then that's when, you know what I mean, the story goes, me and Jay caught the case together. We got locked up after all that was said and done. Dude bumped into me, man. Once that kid bumped into me, man, it was all hell broke loose. Man. I grabbed dude by the arm and I was like, yo, my dude, we know each other from somewhere?
Yeah.
And he's like, nah, why, dude? Oh, no, we ain't gotta do this up here.
Two young men, one moment that could change everything.
It just started beating them up. You know what I'm saying? Like, yo, part of the game you think this is. People tell you to stick up, it's a stick up. Don't get it up. All y'all must get up out of all that. Whatever you got in your pockets, put it in this bag.
Meanwhile, a young Sean Carter from the Marcy houses in Bedford-Stuyvesant was observing everything. He was paying attention. Carter grew up seeing men like Klein move through the streets with authority. These were people who had money, influence, and respect. And according to accounts from that time, Klein first crossed paths with Jay around 1986 or 1987, when Carter was still a teenager with huge ambition but limited opportunities. By that time, Klein already had a serious reputation on the streets. Years earlier, he had faced a murder charge and beat it, something he would later mention in interviews almost casually, like it was just another chapter in a long story. For him, it was simply something that happened, and then life kept moving. After that case, Klein went right back to his circle and continued running his operation. His connection with Jay-Z stayed solid during that time. The two remained in contact, moving through the same networks until 1989, when everything took a dramatic turn. It all happened at a house party in Maryland. On the surface, it looked like a normal gathering. Music playing, people packed into the rooms, the typical party energy of that era. But back then, parties in those circles could shift from calm to chaotic in seconds. Klein later described the situation clearly. A crew from New York, about 12 people deep, suddenly found themselves surrounded by a crowd of nearly 200 locals. And when the numbers look like that, the situation can flip fast. Once things started going sideways, they really went sideways.
Who is Jay-Z to you, man?
Jay's someone who's from Brooklyn. Jay's someone who used to, at the time back in the days, used to hustle with the team.
The exact moment that started the confrontation has never been fully explained. Over the years, Klein has spoken about the situation in different interviews, but he always kept certain details close to himself. What is clearly documented, though, is what happened afterward. Authorities filed serious charges: battery, assault, and possession of a deadly weapon. Those are not small accusations. Cases like that can completely change a person's life if the court rules against them. Both men were suddenly facing a brutal possibility, anywhere from 10 to 40 years in prison. For Jay, the timing could not have been worse. At that moment, he was still quietly working toward a rap career. His debut album wasn't out yet, he wasn't signed to a major deal, and he was still a young guy from Brooklyn trying to turn raw talent into a real future. A major criminal case in another state could have ended that dream before it even had the chance to begin. That's when Klein started trying to handle the situation. According to his own accounts, he reached out to the alleged victim and began negotiating behind the scenes. Eventually, a deal came onto the table: $50,000 in exchange for dropping the charges. Klein paid the money in cash. But there was one serious condition attached to the agreement. The person involved in the case would only agree to drop the charges for one individual, not both. Only one person could walk away from the situation, which meant someone still had to face the case in court. So Bacode and Carter had to face a conversation neither of them likely wanted to have. The question was simple but heavy: who was going to take the fall for the case? According to Klein's later interviews, Jay initially said he would take the charges himself. That's how Klein has described the moment when telling the story years later. But after thinking it over, Klein said he started seeing the situation differently. He looked at Jay's future and compared it to his own life at that time. Jay had a real opportunity in front of him with music. Even though he wasn't famous yet, the path toward a rap career was starting to take shape. Klein, on the other hand, had already survived one serious case and was deeply involved in street life. In his mind, the math looked very different. If Jay took the charges and disappeared into the prison system right then, everything he was trying to build could vanish before it even began. So Klein made the decision himself. When the case moved forward, he stepped up in court and accepted the remaining charges.
This elementary school in Red Hook was simply known as PS 15, a struggling school in a struggling neighborhood. The turning point came in December of that year when longtime principal Patrick Daly was caught in the crossfire of a drug war.
Jay-Z walked away from the situation free to continue pursuing music. Klein ended up receiving 4 years on an assault charge after the more serious accusations were resolved through the cooperation of the alleged victim. But that sentence in Maryland wasn't the end of his legal troubles. At the same time, federal investigators were already watching his alleged drug operation back in Brooklyn. And before long, the system had even more waiting for him. Calvin Bacote ended up serving 13 years, 3 months, and 12 days across both federal and state prisons. 13 years. That's not a small stretch of time people talk about casually. That's a massive piece of someone's life. When Klein went into prison, Bill Clinton was still early in his presidency. By the time he finally walked out in 2004, the country was under the George W. Bush administration. The world outside had shifted in ways that would be hard for anyone to fully grasp from inside a prison cell. And when it came to Jay-Z, those 13 years were everything. In 1996, Reasonable Doubt finally dropped through Rockefeller Records, the independent label Jay had helped build from the ground up. The album immediately made people pay attention. Critics and fans started recognizing him as a serious voice in hip-hop. Then the releases kept coming one after another. In My Lifetime, Volume 1, then Volume 2, Hard Knock Life. Then Volume 3, Life and Times of S. Carter. The momentum kept building. After that came The Dynasty, Rock La Familia, and then in 2001, The Blueprint, an album many fans and critics still call one of the greatest rap records ever created. The run didn't stop there. The Blueprint 2 followed, and then in 2003, Jay-Z released the Black Album, which he announced as his final project before stepping away from music for a while. By the time Klein was finishing his long sentence, Jay-Z had become the biggest rapper in the world, a powerful label executive, and a major figure in the music business. By that point, Jay-Z wasn't just a rapper anymore. He had become a cultural powerhouse, a name that carried serious influence across music and business. In November 2003, he released the Black Album. One of the tracks, Lucifer, included a line that caught attention. Jay rapped, "I've never felt so alive riding shotgun in Klein's Green 5. There it was, a direct shout out, a moment in the lyrics that connected Jay-Z to a man who was still sitting behind prison walls at the time. Klein's name had appeared in Jay's music before. Back on Dead Presidents 2, Jay referenced moments tied to money and life in the late 1980s. Years later, Klein even commented on those lyrics, saying Jay was pulling directly from experiences they shared together growing up around Brooklyn. But the line on the Black Album hit differently. It was clear, direct, and placed right inside one of the most anticipated hip-hop albums of that era. From inside prison, Klein eventually heard about the mention. And not long after that, in 2004, his long sentence finally came to an end. After serving 13 years, 3 months, and 12 days, Calvin Bacote walked out and was sent to a halfway house in South Carolina, which is a common step for people transitioning out of federal prison. And that's where something unexpected happened. While staying at the halfway house, Klein met a young singer from Senegal named Akon. The introduction came through Akon's cousin, who was also staying there at the time. None of them knew it yet, but that meeting would turn into a powerful connection. Klein and Akon connected quickly. At that moment, Akon was right on the edge of a major breakthrough. His debut single, Locked Up, dropped in 2004 and was already gaining serious attention. The hook was everywhere. "I'm steady trying to find the motive." People could feel something big coming. Klein said he saw something familiar in Akon, the same spark he believed he once saw in a young Sean Carter years earlier. Raw talent, big potential, but someone who also needed people around him who understood how the real world worked. So Klein stepped in and became part of the movement. First, he worked closely with Akon as a tour manager. Then he helped behind the scenes as Akon built Convict Music, the label that would later explode in popularity. That label eventually signed huge artists like T-Pain and Lady Gaga, generating massive success and hundreds of millions in revenue. What started as a connection at a halfway house turned into something much bigger than anyone expected. Meanwhile, there was still the story with Jay-Z. When Klein came home in 2004, Jay did reach out.
Jay-Z was my coach back in 09. I caught him 10 months.
I know what it was.
And he got away from that case. I got you, because I took away from the case.
Klein has confirmed that the two spoke after his release. According to Klein, Jay even said he wanted to work on something together. One idea being discussed involved purchasing the Civic Center, a major property deal that could have helped Klein build a legitimate business foundation after spending more than a decade behind bars. But the deal never came together, and after that fell apart, things started getting complicated. Over the years, Klein gave several interviews about the situation. In a 2014 Complex interview, he sounded calm and respectful, saying, "You gotta give Jay credit. He took nothing and turned it into something." But in other moments, his tone was much sharper. During an appearance on Kay Slay's Shade 45 radio show, Klein claimed Jay-Z used parts of his real-life stories in lyrics, presenting them as if they were his own experiences. According to Klein, it wasn't about collaboration or business anymore. His frustration was something deeper. He claimed Jay-Z had taken pieces of his real-life stories, moments from the streets, situations Klein had actually lived through, and turned them into lyrics and imagery. In Klein's view, those experiences helped shape the larger persona Jay presented in his music. One Vlad TV segment headline captured the tension perfectly. Calvin Klein Bacote, Jay-Z and I Need to Speak One-on-One. That's not the kind of headline you see when two people have already settled everything between them. Klein explained in interviews that he tried several times to reach Jay directly, but instead of a personal conversation, he said he kept running into layers of management, scheduling issues, and explanations about why the meeting couldn't happen. For a Brooklyn figure who had spent more than a decade in prison and who believed he had once taken a serious charge that allowed Jay to move forward, being unable to even sit down for a conversation felt frustrating. Later on, Klein admitted he regretted some of the sharper interviews. Part of the reason was that many people started framing his entire story only around Jay-Z, while overlooking the success he helped build with Akon and Convict Music. Later on, Klein decided to tell his story in his own words. He released a book titled Neighborhoods Under Siege, Memoirs of a Brooklyn Don. The book was his way of putting his experiences on record, explaining what he lived through and how those moments shaped his life. For Klein, writing it down mattered because he understood something important. If you don't document your own story, someone else's version might become the only one people hear. One thing that isn't really debated is what happened back in 1989. Calvin Klein Bacote reportedly put up $50,000 of his own money and accepted criminal charges in a Maryland case. That decision allowed Sean Carter to walk out of that courtroom and continue chasing his rap career. After that, the timeline gets complicated. There were shout-outs in songs, a few conversations, talk about possible business deals, and then long stretches of silence. Over the years, Jay-Z rose to become a billionaire and one of the most powerful names in music. Klein, on the other hand, built real success alongside Akon through Convict Music. But somewhere between those two very different paths is a conversation that, according to Calvin Klein Bacote, never fully happened the way he believed it should have. If you found this story interesting, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who loves hip-hop history. And drop a comment below. What do you think about this situation?